So we'll go ahead and get the meeting started. Curriculum instruction meeting for December 7th, 2023. And we will start with any public comment. I forgot to look. I don't see anybody jumping up. Looks like staff out there. So, all right, very good. And are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from the November 9th meeting? All right, the minutes will stand. Any board member comments at this time? All right, we're going to dive right in. And I guess we're starting with career and tech. Here we are.
So good morning. We're very excited to be here on a very busy day for you and long day. But I do want to first start by acknowledging the fact that we also have Ron McGackey seated in the audience. He's part of our team, our small but mighty team, and he will be presenting to you on computer science this evening. Okay. So our topics today, there we go. We'll cover 4 areas. First, an overview of CTE, then the impacts of Maryland Blueprint on CTE, an update on our work-based learning program, and we will end with some celebrations and successes. So first, with our overview, I like to start with this because many people confuse career and technology education with our Career and Technology Center, which is a physical building that houses career and technical education. However, we do offer programs, as you can see, in our middle schools as well as our high schools. So this is an example of just some of the programs that we offer in our comprehensive high schools. And you can see there, business, management, and finance has 2 of the same foundational courses, but then students are able to specialize, whereas in some programs like child development, students enter and complete a very prescribed path towards their industry certification. In addition to these programs that are shown on this chart, which are primarily the ones that are offered in our high schools, many of our high schools also have specialty programs. So thinking about automotive in Brunswick High School or our culinary hospitality in Frederick High, there are many additional offerings beyond those that are on this chart. So moving into the Maryland Blueprint, our most significant goal over the next few years will be opportunities to meet the legislative requirement that's posted that 45% of our graduates earn an industry certification or participate in an apprenticeship program. Other implications for CTE include the requirement that we need to align all of our program of study to the new requirements that have yet to be set, but will be set by the Governor's Workforce Development appointed CTE committee. The Blueprint also encourages career and technical education at the middle and the elementary school levels, requires an agreement with our workforce services to provide individualized career counseling at each of our middle and high schools starting next school year. And we are currently meeting, Kathleen Chappelle, I noticed, is in the audience. She and I co-chair the CTE portion of the Blueprint Steering Committee. And so we've been meeting very closely with our local workforce services and with FCC to identify the job responsibilities and to complete that MOU. Additionally, the Maryland Blueprint expands the definition of dual enrollment to also include non-credit programs, such as the career programs that are currently offered at the Monroe Center. And so we've been working with Dr. Carlson and her team to identify potential programs for inclusion moving forward. So one of our greatest challenges is in meeting the 45% goal is expanding work-based learning with that apprenticeship component. So we found that the major challenge is getting enough employers interested in participating in the Department of Labor program. And we are grateful to this board for including a dedicated coordinator in last year's budget, Eric Bakinski, who is here, he's been here about a year, and he's going to talk about the progress that he has made.
Good morning. All right, so our work-based learning program is really divided up into three sort of subsections indicated in this graphic up the top. Work study is your more traditional placement, and that's for students who are just they're ready to get out into the workforce, wanting to try out a couple of things that they might want to try out later in high school. After they graduate. And there's students who they're just ready to enter the workforce. Internships are they can be paid or unpaid experiences, and those are typically for a more specialized field. We have students who are interning in the healthcare fields. We have students who are interning out in farms, and of course there are a number of students who are placed out in internships as sort of a capstone project for their program of study. And then the final one was the one that I was primarily brought on board to do is to prop up the youth apprenticeship program, and that's kind of what I call sort of the gold standard of work-based learning. So the tagline for youth apprenticeship is "Earn while you learn." So students are hired on just like any other employee would be in the workforce. They're provided a mentor and a very specific and specialized training program that they go through. And again, these are kids who are looking to gain experience in a particular field, and again, they're also ready to enter the workforce upon graduation. But this has been a lot of fun to get to know all of those programs, especially the youth apprenticeship program. Speaking of which, next Wednesday at FCC, we will be holding our fifth annual Youth Apprenticeship Summit. We'll have about 130 students who are in attendance. These are all high school juniors from around all schools in high schools in Frederick County. They'll participate in some workforce services, pre-employment, job-seeking sessions. There's a session on applying for youth apprenticeship. They'll also get a chance to interact with some of our DOL-approved businesses in an employer showcase as they eat a lunch, which is by Chick-fil-A. So I think that'll be a hit.
And Eric, if I could just add real quick on that last slide, if you could go back to that last slide. Just how important, obviously, our business partners and the employer community is in that continuum. We have just amazing business partners so far, but we need more. And if we have any employers that come across this slide, this is not just something charitable that we need the community to do. This is our talent pipeline. And our economy kind of depends on it. And we really see this work-based learning as a centerpiece to that. So whenever we're talking about work-based learning, I always like to make that advertisement to our employer community.
All right, so kind of following up on what I just shared. So some of the strategies that we've taken to sort of prop up the program with a couple events throughout the year. In addition to the Youth Apprenticeship Summit, we are also partnering with Frederick County Workforce Services to host our second annual Senior Career Fair. So last year we had just north of 40 employers who were participating. Looking to grow that list again. We had a lot of students out there last year. I think we had about 250. The feedback that we got from the business community and the employers who were in attendance is students were well prepared. They're asking good questions. They actually dressed for the job they wanted at the event, so that was pretty cool to see. And then, of course, we'll have our signing day with CTC in May on National Signing Day. So the next two slides do also feature a couple of our youth apprentices that are out in active placements right now. This one student, Seamus from Catoctin High School. Probably by the second week, this kid was out in the field. Brendan over at All Around Plumbing was very, very impressed with our candidates. He's a big fan of CTC and this youth apprenticeship program. He has 3 students working for him right now, and he advertised for at least one more vacancy for the December hiring season. All right, so other strategies that we're taking to prop up youth apprenticeship is sort of reimagining our work-study placement. So I've been going around to the comprehensive high schools and meeting with the site-based work-based learning coordinators. We're scrubbing through their work-based learning, their work-study placement lists, identifying some businesses that could potentially be apprenticeable, and then engaging them. Site visits, as you see, there's another student, Jade. She she was fantastic. She is interested in entering the medical field. Her supervisor was very pleased with the work that she's doing, and she's looking to continue her career in the field after high school. So marketing materials, we put out a number of pamphlets. We've gotten things out on social media with a video series that was produced by a local company, 88 Visual, that gave an overview of our work study program and each of the programs within that youth apprenticeship, internship, and work study. Made some presentations to students and families. So we've been out to the CTC in the evening to meet with some newer students and kind of tag along with some of the events that they've hosted out there, just to share a little bit about the program and how students can get involved. Also been visiting some of the high schools to present to some of the EDA and WDA programs to just make them aware of the program. I think that's one of our shortcomings up to this point, is just awareness of the program. As a school administrator just a year ago, this is a program I didn't really know much about. I knew about work study, but I didn't know too much about youth apprenticeship. But the more the word gets out there, the more appealing it sounds to some people. And I think it's a slow burn, but we're starting to make some traction. And then, of course, we've reached out to the chamber, do have some meetings set up with the Rotary, actually through Frederick Health, to just get in front of the business community, pitch our program, and do a little bit of recruiting. So historically, this is where we are with our placed youth apprentices. So 16, 17, and 17, 18 is kind of our pilot years. Participation, we were one of 2 systems that piloted the program. Saw a little bit of growth over the next couple of years. The pandemic, I think, squashed that just a bit. Last year was a bit of a recovery year, but I think this year is looking pretty good already. We have 13 who are placed, a couple of them who've already finished their placements and have moved on to employment with other companies. And then for the December hiring season, which is active right now, the deadline for applications was on Friday. Those applications will be going out to our employers, but we have 14 companies who put up, I would say, at least 15 positions. Some of them have offered multiple. So if we get half of those, we're going to be close to record numbers. If we get all of them, then I think we're set all time.
Sure.
Oh, the Pediatric Movement Center?
Yes.
Yeah, so and that's another thing is traditionally our youth apprentices have been in primarily the construction trades and the automotive industry. So we're starting to see more out there in the healthcare field. We have a brand new one, Pediatric Movement Center. They have an office here in Frederick and also one in Hagerstown. We posted that position, and almost a third of the applicants we got were for that single position right there. So I think we're seeing a changing face of what youth apprenticeship is. Not necessarily just construction or automotive trades, it's going to be everything. So and with newer programs coming on board, we anticipate trying to get some broader coverage of our career fields.
So you can see why we are grateful that you were able to fund the position, because really Eric has been able to make tremendous progress. And like I said, just a year. Okay, so we have a number of other successes we'd like to share. And in these cases, really the data spoke for itself. Going back 5 years ago, we had 32 pathway programs. In just 5 years, we've added 25%. We now have 43 programs of study. 5 years ago, in our programs, we had industry certifications in only 17. Today, we have industry certifications in 41 out of the 43. And I do need to note that those 2 offer college credit. They're the Project Lead the Way programs, but they don't offer industry certifications. So we have really, we feel like we've really made great progress in being able to offer meaningful industry certifications for our students. We have moved over the past 5 years from offering 7 dual enrollment courses to 36 different courses within CTE. And we now have this great we've had this great radar system, FCPS, but as a result of Blueprint, CTE data is now included in that. And it's really opening up opportunities for us, because our CTE teachers can even get in and identify students who have maybe taken 2 or 3 of the pathway courses, so they can reach out to them and say, it's a great recruiting tool. Here you go, just one more and you'll be a CTE completer. But one of the great data that we were able to pull from that this year is with the articulation agreements that we have with Frederick Community College, with our local universities, and our dual enrollment. This year alone, our CTE students can complete 3,747 college courses. That's not credits, that's courses. So when you're talking credits, it's over 10,000 college credits that our kids will earn as a result of our CTE programs. And then lastly, as Mr. Murphy previously shared, we would not be where we are if it weren't for our business partners. Many people are not aware that we have 17 different program advisory committees, really one for each individual industry. And they meet several times a year. They meet with our teachers and share industry trends, skills that are needed, and support our programs by coming in as guest speakers, by hosting field trips, by serving on interview panels, mock interviews, and serving as youth apprentice and work study and internship employers. So we're extremely grateful to them. And our local advisory committee is a Frederick County Advisory Committee. It is offered in conjunction with FCC. And that group is really made up of many business leaders. We also have a Board of Education rep that serves on that committee. And they help us to determine the direction that we need to go with CTE programs of study. They provide us, Workforce Services provides us with industry data. And again, the industry partners really share with us their needs so that we are able in turn to be able to provide those programs of study for our students.
If I could just add a couple things, Dr. Pearl. Number one, back to Blueprint. You probably saw on the agenda for the work session, part 1, and then this evening, part 2. A lot of conversation today about the Blueprint. With CTE and work-based learning, as well as our other pathways like dual enrollment, we believe that we're very well positioned in terms of the pathway opportunities that students have. It's just going to be really a matter of expanding that and implementing, and just a credit to the growth that CTE has had here at FCPS. And if you think about the pathways that are available now, think about the options that a high school student has with CTE, or with the virtual school, or with being able to spend the senior year in an apprenticeship. There's lots of options there, which is exactly what we want. The second thing to just point out is the incredible demand that now creates. And I think we're all aware of the limited space at the CTC, and one of our greatest challenges being, meeting that demand. So I just wanted to acknowledge that challenge is real. And in the short term, Mr. Concepcion at the CTC and Dr. Pearl are thinking as creatively as possible about using every square inch in that facility. We're also looking at any space that's available in our comprehensive schools to put additional programs, as well as we talked about dual enrollment. So many of our programs culminate with a dual enrollment course, a partnership with FCC as well on potential space for some of these programs is conversations we're also having both on the main campus next to the CTC as well as Monroe Center. So I just wanted to point out that challenge, and obviously it's something that we're all going to need to engage in long term.
So we are up to questions. Jay, we'll start with you. Any questions?
Oh, I have several. I'll start by saying this is wonderful. This is like it's a good day to be in person. This is like huge out there. I love all of this. This is actually one of my biggest hearts for the county, and see this grow and spread. And so a lot of things that I had here noted, but I have some questions like going deeper in each one. I'll start off by saying that I actually myself was a youth apprentice student. Actually, I learned how to work the portable X-ray machine at St. John's Hospital, Philadelphia. It was actually closed a few years back, but I think I did everything radiologists did. I read X-rays, I with the doctors. I went in the rooms, I helped patients out. So it was a wonderful experience. And so actually, I learned and learned. She was actually a really great program. So I'm overjoyed to stay at the program here in the county. Let's see, expanding beyond construction order, which is wonderful. We need those, we need to spread it as well. I also make a small note saying that actually I was, a few weeks back, I was being a physical therapist, and I was getting some, some stretches and, exercises in. And he said, "Oh, can my student apprentice, join us?" I was like, "Sure." And it was a young student from Oakdale. I was like, "This is awesome." I was like, "Wow." So I literally experienced the benefit of the program and saw our students in action, and she was wonderful. And so it was really cool that she could be a patient in the middle of that experience. So I've seen the growth happen personally. So real fast for time, I have some small notes. You guys answer quick questions. I see we need to make awareness a big deal because it's just marketing. And unfortunately, it's something that we as a county struggle with in general for everything we do. We don't need a marketing consultant. We just need to just get people aware of what we got going on. It's just hard to get the word out, and so we got to fix that. But I wanted to ask about you mentioned before about doing enrollment. Now certifications are doing enrollment. Does that mean certification fees are now paid as well?
For next year's budget, yes, for
Wow.
Maryland Blueprint, we will be paying certification fees, excuse
I
me,
think we pay them. We pay them.
FCP, it's in FCPS's budget, yes. Yes, for next year. Currently, a lot of them are funded through grants, but this will be part of the pass-through funds.
Just
from
to double check,
Maryland Blueprint.
if I want to get a certification, say like, cybersecurity,
Mhm.
and it's not at FCC, then it's online somewhere.
Right,
Or it's a certification, that's going to be paid for me as a student,
yes, at our Career and Tech Center, yes.
but not at a school?
Oh, we just don't happen to offer Cisco at our comprehensive schools.
Okay,
But all of our industry certifications will be covered next year.
okay, so there's a certain list of information. Because
Yes.
I'm going to drive to that there are industries that like IBM. Right now I know IBM and Google, they have their own track course. You can take courses from them and get certification from them. Would that fall into a purview for that?
So right now, our industry certifications have to first be approved by MSDE.
There we go.
Once the CTE committee is up and running, they will make changes, and we're hopeful that they will expand opportunities for industry certifications for our students.
Okay, that helps a lot. Okay, now, great. And then let's see. So, what are the requirements for a student to be in the youth diverse program?
Can you take that?
Well, it's pretty much a standalone program. It's offered to high school juniors and seniors. We do post positions 3 times a year, provided they have met the credit requirements, GPA requirements. They can apply. And then it's a 4-credit program, so 3 credits come from the 435 hours of structured apprenticeship. And then the last credit comes from a list of related instruction that we provide to the Department of Labor.
So what's the GPA requirement?
The 2.0, I'd have to double check.
Well, we want to make sure the students are on target to graduate.
Right, and accessible, yeah, that's good, accessible, that's great. Then, so in other counties I've seen that like, there's been a move to streamline computer courses. See, where they had 4 courses for computer, for, a tech computer. They've streamlined it down to now 3.
What time do you want to speak to that?
I didn't hear it.
So, I've seen counties streamline their computer course tracks, from like 4 courses down to 3 courses.
It is.
Are we
It is
doing well? Okay.
It is 3. It's their foundations in computer science, their tech ed credit.
Right.
And then they have AP principles, AP A, and then the advanced computing applications. And with certifications, there's not a certification in that pathway, but I was with MSD yesterday,
Mhm.
and they're looking at a Java certification process.
Thank
So-
you.
That originally came from MSDE as a response to the pandemic to ensure that students could complete their program. But then quickly realized that this really opened access for students to complete a program successfully. And so certain programs that MSD has identified eligible to complete within those 3 credits and so forth.
And then you said Java computer?
Java certification, they're looking into that.
Is there one for Python coming up?
I don't know, but we do teach the Python in our foundations course.
Because Python's not gobbling up that market share. kids.
Yeah, we do that, and then we do that through CMU.
Okay, yes.
That's where all our foundation in computer science is.
And I think those were mine. Thank you also for my things.
Ms. Johnson, any questions?
I'm just soaking it all in. Mr. J covered some of the issues. I think space is just the only thing that I can't get first and forefront. I know from a conversation over the summer with one of Congressman Friend's reps, he said that there's some federal funding for acquiring space. And I know I just read in the paper stuff about the Montessori charter school moving buildings to like one of those big buildings in Toll House.
Wouldn't that have been wonderful?
I
I'm
saw
like,
that
why
today.
didn't we jump on that building?
Yes,
So
yes.
it just, I mean, I'm happy for them, but I feel like we missed an opportunity because it's across the street from the hospital.
Right.
So we need space, and that's gonna be, I think, one of the areas that I'll be helping push more is space. And with, our collaboration, sorry, that's my other alarm. With our delegation, and I think this is gonna take everybody's big effort to just figure out what we have to do. Whether we just like steal property or,
I mean,
adverse possession, I mean.
do we bring the
We need
programs to the
space.
students? I mean, like, do we? is
But
there
imagine though,
space that
all the
we-
healthcare possibilities,
Right.
and like that building, like,
And that's
it's
our
within 2
largest
blocks.
growing program, the
Yes.
most
Yes.
requested.
So
Yes.
my first thought when I read that story in the paper was, "Ah, we didn't get that." So that's where my ambitions lie, is just, the space acquisition. Because the CTC building's nice out there, and it's close to FCC for that. But, between Monroe, it just seems like a hodgepodge. So we need like this more space dedicated. And like I said, it broke my heart to see that wonderful building. I mean, it's going to good work, but I truly think we have a higher need in this area. So, because we're developing the workforce. So
I felt the same exact way. And
Oh,
it
okay.
breaks my heart when we have to turn away students.
yes.
329 from the Career Tech Center this year.
Yeah. So that's the one thing on the space, and then just on the other, this is kind of like a peripheral question. I'm sitting here looking at the data of the students on our dashboard internal to SCC. Like, how much sharing of that? I pulled up all the grades for dual enrollment students under 17. It's like, what are we doing with sharing data? Because this is like our system, but I don't know, like, what is FCPS? When I say R, I'm wearing 2 hats.
Right.
But as a faculty member, I have access to a lot of this performance data for students, and making sure that our students enrolled represent our community. And so I can pull up, by gender, by ethnicity, and grades. And I want, what are we doing to ensure that we're being equitable or doing things from that equity lens.
So the MSDE has a CTE data dashboard,
Mhm.
which breaks down every subgroup for every program of study. And that is part of the Perkins requirement when
Okay.
we put in for that grant each year. So we have to do a deep analysis and see where there's growth opportunities and where we're doing very well. And typically, we have found, I did a study as part of professional development with CTE teachers at CTC last year, and we found that the only area that we were deficient was related to gender.
Mhm.
So otherwise, we really mirror the demographics of FCPS, and in some cases have more opportunities than our school system demographics.
So that question I wanted, actually, I didn't get to, are we monitoring, I'm sure we have some small fashion, but like a blueprint checklist? Mentioned before, what we have going on, what we don't have, what we're trying to put. So like a visual we have, like visual we have before, it was outstanding.
So again, our work with the Blueprint Steering Committee that Kathleen and I are co-chairing, we have compiled a team of various stakeholders, and we have been analyzing the legislation, and then here's where we are, and here's where we need to go. That's what goes into the implementation plan. So you'll be hearing a little bit about that this evening, and then more to come as that implementation plan is fully developed. I believe it'll be released sometime after.
And just one more thing, I'm just looking at all these growth trends, you know, they're like a 50% increase in enrollment in our 17 and under students in dual enrollment between spring of 21 and 2022. It's a first look at the data, so I'm gonna spend some more time just looking at this, but everything is just on this trajectory. So do we know when that'll level off?
That's more of a dual enrollment question. I would think Diana's son.
Yeah,
would be best to
I think we're gonna continue to see
We can't keep this pace.
Well, you
You know
know,
that, we're not gonna have kids in regular.
the big change obviously though being that tuition will be free. So that will probably result in another spike with tuition being free across the board.
Well, there's the pro and con of, well, you know, promoting programs. Oh, didn't know that existed. Now it's paid for. Oh, I'm gonna give it a try. So, you know, for good or bad. Yeah, I echo everything, and you kind of answered that because I wrote down options for other, you know, just thinking, but you already said we're pushing things into the buildings where we can. And, you know, we each had our little sit down with Dr. Dyson to kind of let her see, you know, what our vision was. I said, you know, when I ran 4 years ago, everybody was on board with career tech education. I don't know anybody that's not, frankly. I said, but all we've done is talk. And she said, well, the blueprint's going to require that we do something. So, you know, with my colleagues here, my brain's kind of said, we're going to talk some more. We're going to be talking because there's some things kind of churning out there that we need to kind of grab a hold of and make sure that something happens from it. Let's see. I just wrote notes. Oh, and I want to say I recognize you from the Veterans Day. So thank you for your service. And now, you know, putting it into service for FCPS. So the Veterans Day slideshow. Mr. Ricketts.
He was the first one recognized by FCPS many years ago when we started that program.
Oh, great. Oh, wonderful. Yes. Because I was connecting you. Which school were you an administrator at?
I was at Crestwood, Ballinger Middle, and Urbana.
Okay. So middle school is probably my area that I don't get to as much, and I need to do that. But I did connect you with an administrator, so and then when you said a year, so that's good. And I do like that you have that background experience of being an administrator, so you know what they know and what they don't know and how to connect. So that's wonderful. I think my only question was on, it said 45% for Blueprint on slide page 6. And I know you've told us this before, but what are we currently, like, how far do we have to
For
go?
the last several years, we have hovered around 22, 23%. So it's our understanding that the committee will be giving us benchmarks to reach each year, and we will need to have incremental successes. We're just, you know, again, having opportunities to offer more CT programs of study because the industry certifications are typically the culmination of a program of study. So it requires a student to take several of our CTE classes to have that knowledge to be able to then go out and immediately, you know, use that certification for a career. So we do need to expand CTE and youth apprenticeship to be able to get there.
Okay, good, because I was going to say, what are your biggest stumbling blocks, which I think we've already addressed. And just the one other thing that did occur to me when you talked about, I wasn't surprised to hear gender, just because my husband's an electrician, I've been out to CTC, but is the health, what occurred to me in seeing the slide with Jade in it, is the health, are the health offerings helping bringing more females into those numbers?
Well, one of the things that the Perkins, the federal requirements require us to look at individual industries. And so for health, they actually would like to see us recruit more males. Likewise, cosmetology, they'd like to see more males. But our construction trades, our automotive programs, they would like us to receive females. So it's kind of a struggle because it's not just participation in general. We are around 50-50 participation, but it's by individual industries.
And thoughts on, I'm sure you talk about it a lot, but thoughts on, years ago, I took a course on engineering, and then had a little engineering club at the 5th grade at Tuscarora Elementary. And one of the things they said in there is that they find sometimes stereotypes kind of ring true, and that with the female students, they found if they could show them how engineering helped people. And so a lot of the female students were interested in, say, prosthesis and more direct route to helping people. So sometimes you have to take where people are and break down some stereotypes that might have some truth to them and work ways. So do you have any thoughts of how you can attack that part of it?
Yes, we have a number of strategies that we've been trying. Certainly when we put out our request for Perkins funds, that is a huge consideration, is will what you're requesting help us to impact any of our data, including gender. We do have a Women in Trades committee made up of industry women who they just got started this year. It's under Danny Adams from the Frederick County Builders Association. She is so dynamic, and working with Chuck, yes, at FCC, as well as Charles. Yes, as well as Charles Crum from our HVAC program. And it's just, I've had the opportunity to participate in a couple meetings. It's a really dynamic group, and they are creating awareness. They came to the open house at CTC, and they are really dividing and conquering to get the word out there about opportunities for women. It's 90% of the people in the room are women that are in trades. So that's very exciting. We look for great things from them. But then, yes, we're continually analyzing strategies. For example, in our automotive program, some of the feedback that we get from women that shadow or young women that shadow is that they would like to see more technology-based applications in the automotive program. They're not as interested in the, changing the oil and those type of things, although they would need to learn those skills. And we've talked about maybe the need to upgrade that program with just a nice, clean, shiny floor and clean, shiny walls so that it's more appealing. Because honestly, when you go to new automotive companies nowadays, you walk in and it is so clean and bright. And so we do want to mirror what's actually out there in the real world because we think that will help attract in that particular case. We are also in the process with Perkins funds renovating our cosmetology lab. So we are hopeful that moving it from the 70s to the 2020s will help attract people there as well. Yes, sir.
On that small cosmetology males, is there any hope to get African American barbers in the program?
So my boss, Kevin Puckett, did ask me to do some research, and I did present a report to him, and I believe he shared it with Dr. Dicey.
Yeah, I didn't hear that, but I'm wondering, like why? Why doesn't the MSD approve to have like?
Oh, it is in the MSD program
approved.
study.
Okay.
They're just, the main finding we found was there were, I believe it was like 900 jobs in Frederick County in barbering. And so there wasn't the job market that some of our other programs of study have. And we're at the point where we have no room to expand at CTC. So until we get additional space, we're
And that was my next question I had. Other things.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I had a couple more.
So when staying at TTC, when I think about that, I think about like they would expand a sports program. So if you have like, we want to get sports out to the schools, but we don't have the equipment. For instance, my first high school, I went to high school. My first high school, I went to, we went to football. I said, well, we can't. We don't have the equipment. We can't afford it. We're like, oh, man, really? And so of the sports you can play. They were more cost effective. Go here's soccer, here's a ball and some grass, or here's a basketball and some hoops. So it's more affordable and easy to maintain and you can move it. And so while we may not be able to take the hockey or the football CTE programs across county, there are some lightweight programs we can spread around. And so are we looking at those lightweight programs that are easy to be, like, if you're a teacher with a classroom, a visiting teacher in a classroom, in a classroom, the computers and kids, they get the program going in that room. Just with them, a cart.
Right.
So they're lightweight programs we could spread around again.
Yes. Do you want to take that in terms of the work we've been doing recently with FCC?
Yeah, I think I think your point about the lightweight program is spot on, because we want to look at programs where the space is kind of agnostic. You can use any generic classroom, right, and pretty much go anywhere with it. And so we've been working to identify which programs those are that can up and move basically anywhere, and which are the programs that, really have the specialized equipment and a unique space that you really need to invest in that particular space. So that is kind of fundamental to our thinking right now in terms of short-term fixes to accommodate more kids each year. And so whether that's in a comprehensive high school, or whether that's in a commercial space, or whether that's in an empty classroom at Frederick Community College, those are the conversations that we want to be having.
Yeah, I think that's a little long way to help us spread the program throughout. And
And I think one program similar to what you're talking about, what we're looking into for computer science.
exactly.
We're working with some other counties. We have one pathway right now. We're deciding should we expand that or not. Some counties are looking into a robotics pathway, working with MSDE. So that's something we talked about yesterday too. That could be a pathway available at all schools
Right.
instead of just
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah, so we're all going. I'm in the candy shop. This is wonderful. So we're all going in the right direction. Thank you so much.
I think the only other thing I was going to say is we have some wonderful connections to FCC. Ms. Johnson, Carolyn Kimberlin, former administrator, is on their board. Tom Lynch. We're losing April Miller to the State House, but we just have some wonderful connections with FCC, of course, with the enrollment, but I think we certainly need to capitalize on those even more than before. So, and I know everybody's working hard, and you ask a question and see, you're already doing these things, you're already thinking of them. That's what's good for us to know. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, Dr. Pearl. Mr. McKinsey, we'll just do a quick transition.
You need one. I will say, but I was just telling my husband, for now, it's okay if it goes. It's just somebody that was went to sleep but then died.
Let me know if you need one, and I'll-
So next up, if you're ready to continue,
Yeah.
is English Language Arts. We're going to cover both elementary and secondary English Language Arts today. With us is Jennifer Ralston, our elementary curriculum specialist, and Sue Ann Nagel, secondary curriculum specialist in English Language Arts. And you're going to hear a lot about the K-12 programs, some of the comprehensive reading and literacy programs that we're bringing in, the Ready to Read Act, and you'll also hear Mrs. Nagel talk about our focus on ensuring cultural diversity within our texts. So I'm going to turn it over, starting with elementary, Ms. Ralston.
So I'll begin with the primary grades and most recent updates. So we have, since 2019, implemented Really Great Reading Phonics Suite in whole group Tier 1 instruction in grades K through 2. We use assessments of reading and writing foundational skills to inform our targeted instruction in small groups. We also use decodable text to apply those phonics skills that are learned in the Really Great Reading program. And we have utilized the Lexia Core 5 computer adaptive reading program in our schools K to 5. That is a blended platform, blended learning platform. And then we are also prioritizing writing foundational skills, including handwriting and sentence formation. We know that during the pandemic, that was one of the most difficult subjects to teach virtually, writing. So we want to ensure our students have mastered those early writing skills.
And Ms. Ralston, kind of more for the public, but when people hear science of reading, what on kind of that slide could you draw out that really is science of reading?
Well, every single bullet there, the explicit systematic phonics instruction, or the really great reading phonics week, the writing foundational skills, the small group instruction that's targeted on those specific skills that students need, and that's based on data, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the Ready to Read Act, and that's the data that we use. And the Lexia Core 5 program includes those phonemic awareness and phonics skills early on, and then it progresses into vocabulary and comprehension. Students progress through those levels. And then, of course, the writing foundational skills, but handwriting has been shown to enhance reading acquisition. So every single bullet. We are working on the reading comprehension component. That is our big ask in the next year with the Maryland Leads Initiative. We need a comprehensive resource for reading comprehension and writing composition. So while we're working on these foundational skills, we have curriculum standards for reading comprehension and writing composition in grades K through 2. So that is our next step. So in grades 3 through 5, as you know, with the Maryland Leads Initiative, we implemented the comprehensive program into reading that is aligned to the Maryland College of Career Ready standards. It received all green and ed reports for its alignment to the standards, its quality text, and its usability. It includes vocabulary and knowledge building, high quality and content rich text that are culturally relevant, digital and print. And this was acquired, the digital resources were acquired during the pandemic so that we had digital resources and student-facing resources in Schoology. And so what the Maryland Leads Initiative did for us was allow the physical materials to be in students' hands and in the teachers' hands. Again, we're utilizing the Lexia Adaptive Reading Program for a digital tool. Students mainly use that during the independent time when teachers are working with small groups of students to provide that supplemental instruction. And we also began using Typing Agent as a keyboarding program during the pandemic because we knew that most of the work was being done on a computer and students needed to have that explicit instruction in keyboarding in grades 3 through 5. And then the Ready to Read Act was implemented in 2019, and then COMAR followed a year later with Maryland regulations, expanded that to grade 3, and we have been implementing the Amplified DIBELS assessments since 2019. All students are screened for reading difficulties early on so that we can intervene early when it is most effective. All families are notified of the results of the screener. Letters are sent home 3 times a year, along with a report from Amplify. This identifies students who need supplemental instruction based on the data and align with their area of deficit. Teachers then monitor student progress of identified students at least every 3 weeks and adjust instruction if the students are not making progress. And we are coming up on our middle of the year benchmark here very soon, at the end of December. January. We look at that data closely to see, is this instruction working? Our literacy specialists, I'm going to give a shout out to them right now because they are key in this implementation. They are the bridge between the central office and the classroom. Without them, the professional learning that's required and the support that is required to implement this will not happen. So, there should be a question slide, I'm sorry. Go back. I'm Simeon Novel again, and curriculum specialist for the secondary side of the team. And I want to talk a little bit about what we have been doing this school year, which really started way back in the summer during our curriculum workshops. What we did was we revised the ELA curriculum resources, and we audited the curriculum for cultural diversity, just like Scott said a little while ago, and we made sure we revised accordingly. We wanted to make sure that our students could see themselves in what they read. We extended access to Common Lit, and that has been great as a resource. We now have resources for 6 through 12. We've been using Common Lit really probably for about 5 years now, and it was very instrumental in how we were successful during the pandemic as far as instruction goes, because it had great literacy pieces that we used. And now we've extended access to it, which is really exciting. And our teachers and our students are loving it. I'm seeing it when I go out and do observations in the school. And then we revised English 11. We wanted to make sure it was much more compatible with English 9 and 10. And by revising it, we put it into cycles. Our curriculum 6 through 11 now is into 8. Each year is 8 cycles of learning. And those cycles revisit our Common Core standards over and over and over again, so that when students exit a grade level, they're ready to go to the next level. So we were excited to get 11 on board with that as well. We also updated our ELA assessments. We're using iReady this year for the first time as the Universal Reading Comprehension Screener, and we used it in grades 6 through 8, and then our year-long 9th grade and 10th grade classes, and then all of 10th grade. We also revised our benchmark assessments and rubrics to make sure we are really reflecting MCAP the best we can, so that students go into MCAP feeling confident in being able to take the assessment to the best of their abilities. And then finally, we identified resources to support student success. There were so many Tier 1 resources, and those are classroom resources like graphic organizers, like questions, guiding questions, and other supports that we have uncovered with iReady and with Common Lit. And so what we are doing is, through our literacy specialist meetings, we are providing professional learning opportunities with both Common Lit and iReady, so that they can go back to their buildings and show teachers exactly what is available in these programs. So it's been a busy year, but we're excited about the new resources, and so are our teachers. Questions, comments? Any questions? No?
So I'll start with the elementary video for sharing with. And I'll be, it's actually one of my parts that I haven't had the time and structure to push it I want to, but honestly, what we do in ministry is literally the key. Because without reading, they can't access any of what we have for them. We have all these great things for them from top to bottom, but they can't access it. It's just going to be shut out to them. That's math right now, so I would focus on that. And science agreement is really important. Actually, there's some application on that, and I reminded of paper memory. I was taught how to send out words, and so I worked out well from the send out words, and I'm a strong reader and I love reading. My sister was taught on the segmentation, and she struggled. She struggled. And actually, she right now, she is a very renowned and focused education leader. I don't know what kind she's in now. She working previously for she works for education, helping students learn how to read and helping them move forward because what happened part. And so the trauma what she experienced, she said, I'm going to say it to other students. And so just seeing how we were both taught. I came in first, and then she, a year later, she said, we'll do this. And then she really struggled with that. And so I think it's really important to do it right, and that's really the hope that we have in the freedom of the way. So thank you for that. And I'm glad we're doing Student University to catch this. This is, we have to double down on that. If we don't, if we can't, because we're not reading well, it's just a pathway to frustration. For secondary, I just had a quick request. I brought up before, but I want to mention it again. For our seniors, I work with seniors in our first period class, and the stress on them because they have to do everything they have to do in school, and then they also have to do the next steps. Whether they're applying to, what essays they're writing, whether they get applied, it consumes their time. So much so that my student course is actually pretty. I have flexibility. We give them time from the classroom. They work on their foundations, on their essays. They were just so grateful. And now I have them, as that time has passed, the first pass, all the patients are in, now they double down focus. So I want to ask you to request that we could weave into our curriculum and put it in class time. Like, make it a benchmark, make it a formal assessment. Like your next steps. It could be applying Coast Guard, it could be applying to Harvard, it could be applying to Hopkins, scholarship, but like you're going to do productive writing, and that's your assessment. And so where do you apply to? And never going to be writing that's persuasive. Write a letter to your teacher who asks you for a recommendation. Like that should be part of what they're doing. So it's like it's built into the kids. A lot of kids are getting extra work and mock assignments. They can go home and do the real life stuff. That should be with them in the classroom. You should prepare them and have them assist them all forward. I'll give you a soft example. My sister, she's an OT. When she graduated from her school, she then had to do it on her own with her degree. She couldn't practice yet because she had to go to take the exam. Why didn't her school put that into the program? Why did she graduate fully certified? She had to graduate on her own for a while, studying and practicing for the exam afterwards. It was foolish to me. I don't want this to our students. So I really want to see bake that into the cake. So when they're in class as seniors and juniors, they are already have in class, they can see the value of school because school helped me get my scholarship. School helped me get my acceptance letter. And I want to stay in the cake. So can we do that?
It's done.
It's
We've
done.
already done it. I created magic today. We've been doing it. 11th grade has a unit, a cycle that deals with the application process, as well as thinking about college and the application process for college, not only the work world. 12th grade is very heavy in that, English 12. There is a whole section, the students do a portfolio in there, and the portfolio is the letter for an
It's
application
not
to a
mock.
job.
It's just, yeah.
It's what they're interested in. They research jobs in their area. Same thing with colleges. So there's both sides, and the teacher can individualize it. Are you going to college next in 12th grade, or are you going to the work world? So
And does that happen, say, in September for the November 1st deadlines?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it does. Yes, it does. So that's kind of how that course is designed. Now, some of our students go into the AP courses in 12th grade, as well as the dual enrollment courses. If they take our straight English 12 course, it's very heavy on getting ready for the next step, whatever it may be.
Okay, so what we do for kids with ADHD, what we do for them?
11th grade, that's one reason that we backpack, and it's also in the 11th grade course as well. So they get like an idea of it, whether they remember carries over. We hope it does.
Okay, so he really should be applying 11th grade when he really should apply. So it's almost too late.
Yes. Some of the schools even do mock interviews. I'm not sure, that was much more popular when I was an administrator a few years back, but some of the schools are still doing that for 11th graders so that they have an interview with someone from the business community. so that they can understand what they need to do to prepare for presenting this forward.
Thank you very much.
Also, as a blueprint, Mr. J, Dr. Pearl mentioned earlier, the career counseling that's going to be expanded with the blueprint. And so I think it is a need for us to be really working with students on a more individual level. Like if the students in an AP class, for example, that, what is that next step after high school? And how can we support students to get them there, even if we can't do it in English class, find other ways to do it. So I see that also being something that gets ramped up.
I'm very passionate that the kids leave us and are ready. They're ready because the world's ready for them. And they, some of our kids don't have the home support that others have. When they leave school, graduate, all right, it's time to go, bye. And if they can't feed themselves, we feel it. So I'm very big on we have to prepare kids to leave us and be able to eat. If I see a little child on the side of the road asking for money because they can't feed themselves, this job, I didn't do my job. So I'm under pressure, but I'm going to apply it because that's my heart. They get to leave us ready to feed themselves.
It's always nice when Mr. J goes first because we do think a lot alike with respect to questions and our approaches to what we feel our students should be equipped with when they leave CPS. And I just, ELA and elementary ed is not my wheelhouse. So I'm learning about the science of reading. I know it's super important, and I have a young child who I do think suffered through the pandemic, and his writing skills not good. And I'm not blaming the system. I think it's just the environment that these children have had to go through. And on the reading aspect, I know I've seen him use the Lexia program, and on the science of reading and the work that we were doing in the textbook review, which we're going to have an action consent tonight, talks about the science of reading, and HMH has the 5 pillars. Is that like for everywhere, or is that just their version? Like, what would happen if I looked at Pearson? The science-based roots. They have it broken down into like phonetics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and phonemic awareness. So is that going to be is that a standard, or is that a publisher standard?
It's out of the National Reading Panel.
Okay.
Gosh, that's been
Early 2000s.
yeah.
And are all the publishers? This has helped me learn more versus the questions I have. Well, I think it'll help me be able to formulate better questions. But if I looked at Pearson's site, will they come up with the same 5 pillars? They better. I'm a big skeptic.
I was going to say, if you go, the national, if you go National Reading Panel, there was, again, as I read it probably 15 years ago. It's just taken that long for things to kind of shift over. But that's what they found. They pulled a bunch of experts together and did it on a national level. These are the ingredients, the pillars, the whatever you want to call them, that they felt made for successful reading that students needed to be able to read. I know most of my career was in the elementary language arts field. Never felt like I wanted to teach math, but because I felt like I was better at that. But the language arts is so crucial. I don't disagree with it. You got to read. It was talked about. We want to give you choices. We want you to be able to choose and not just have to settle for what you can do, and that education will help you in being able to read, your independence, and all that. And so, yeah, I would say it's an interesting read, actually. You might want to just go through that. Richard Ellington is one of my favorite people. I don't know where he stands right now, but I liked him a lot. Anyway, I don't know. You find it interesting.
What guides us? Like, what resources do we lean on when we're making decisions?
So let me go first, just to provide a little context on the Maryland Reads Grant, which put science and reading front and center, which FCPS and pretty much every district in Maryland went after. As part of that process, curriculum publishers were required to submit an application and demonstrate their alignment to science of reading, evidence-based practices. What ended up happening was most of them ended up on the list of approved curriculum providers that are aligned to science of reading. And so we in FCPS, have a much higher threshold of what we want to see in a curriculum publisher with science of reading practices. And as a result, we're kind of in that process of narrowing things down. So you'll see one tonight, you saw one at the last board meeting. Right now, we're in the process of narrowing it down from that big long list of what we really think would be the best match for FCPS as it comes to science of reading. What we know for sure is there's no perfect one that's going to do everything we want. And in some fashion, it's going to mean us, really drilling into the professional learning, or perhaps supplementing the resource as needed to do what we want it to do. So that's a little bit of background about how we even have curriculum publishers on the table, which MSDE sort of got involved with the vetting in new ways that they've ever done as a result of Maryland Leads.
Well, and also the state superintendent, Chaudhary, is very, very, very big on the science of reading, and I'm on the Professional Standards and Teacher Education Board, and it keeps being on our future agendas. But he met with us a few months ago to talk about teacher pipeline and the science of reading, and it's all obviously a very big push. And I think maybe one of your concerns is emails we get from people in the community who aren't aware of where we are, of the changes we've made. But the other thing is that, in the past, Fountas and Pinnell were the standard, and Lucy Calkins, and these were things that we used in Frederick County Schools. So I think there's a concern that, maybe we're saying we're doing science of reading, but we're using these resources still that haven't proven to meet that standard. And so I think part of it is just we present, educating board members. It goes back to our last presentation, getting the word out that, this is what we're doing. Because I know one of the emails we got recently with some suggestions, and Dr. Cuppett emailed back what we are doing that really were there, but the person wasn't aware of it. So, and that was when you asked them, Ms. Ralston, to talk about science of reading. That was exactly what one of my questions, to be sure to talk about what we are doing in that area and get it out there. And also from being on PSAP, one of my concerns, I think, for secondary is elementary teachers, especially elementary classification, really have to have the credits in the reading and going forward, really in the science of reading. Our institutes of higher education have got to catch up and do a better job, but they're aware of that. But secondary teachers kind of, even though reading is so important, they kind of get to skate with what they have to do. I'm sure a lot of them do it on their own, but it would have been nice, I think, for us to, it's kind of done for now, but to make sure that standard is there for secondary teachers as well.
And I will let you know that all of our literacy specialists, as well as our reading teachers in 6 through 12, are being trained in science of reading. So I think those started last week. And it's like a day long. They get to spend some time with the experts in the field. And then they have some homework, from what I understand, too. So at least the reading teachers and the lit specialists, and they're going to be there, so they're able to support the schools. But yes.
Good, and I think that kind of goes to your point, Mr. J, is that it is so crucial, and we need people, sort of all hands on deck, and everybody needs to have as much training. Because again, most of my 25-year career was centered, maybe minus 2 years, on the teaching of reading, and the last 6 years at least was all language arts. And I still scratch my head a lot of times to say, how the heck do kids ever learn this when it's so, seems so natural for some, but so complicated for others. And, but yet, if we do it in a systematic way, the majority, and we hear from, of course, our friends from the dyslexia world, every board meeting to remind us, and so for some it is really difficult, but can be manageable and doable if we do it. So thank you so much.
Well,
Yeah.
can I just like follow up with that? Earlier in the summer, we looked at Super Kids. And then it was taken off the list. I remember going with the reading curriculum, and it had great reviews in terms of helping students learn how to read. I know when we were looking at the materials, it felt like kind of culturally it wasn't in sync with today's society, and the imagery that was shown had a lot of stereotypes in them. And so I was really struggling with looking at the pictures, knowing that there was like so much data that supported that program. Where are we at with that? Because I was hoping maybe the publisher would revise their material, because the content, and I guess the mechanics were there. So where are we at with that?
We met with them and they acknowledged the issue. They, are engaged in a process to, look at where they have materials out in districts across the country and make some revisions. How long that takes and what investment they're going to make and all of that, we don't really know. But it's another example of there's no perfect program, because we were just about ready to bring that for approval, and we said, there's different perspectives here, and we need to take a closer look. And it's kind of what I said before was needing to take what's been approved, which is a big long list, narrow it down to really what does science and reading look like at FCPS, and will meet the expectations that we have for cultural responsiveness and instructional strategies, and bring more than one for approval, so that we can engage with our stakeholders to narrow it down, make a decision, as well as negotiate with publishers. And so that's real as well, because of the investment that this requires. So that was sort of how that unfolded. It resulted in an immediate meeting with that particular publisher, who heard our voices and acknowledged some of the things that could be improved.
So as a question followed with that, one, is there that was like McDonald's, there was a Burger King option there, another should have had some materials in that regard or looking at it?
I think Ms. Ralston could probably speak to it better than me, but it's like, and also Ms. Johnson just said that, man, this program has all these great things, but we wish it had that. And
I felt like our value system was being compromised. So like the technical aspects and the mechanics were there, but when we look at what our value system is here, at least within Frederick County, and our goals, aspirational goals, and our goals, it was out of sync, actually out of sync.
And I do think pretty much any program that we bring forward would have and we wish it had that, fill in the blank. That has been part of our challenge as we evaluate these resources.
My next question to that is, actually doing the process. So there's what you have in the kitchen, and what you serve to your guests. So you may have some unrefined, unchopped, dirty vegetables in the kitchen, but you wash them and you grate them and you chop them and you season them.
The
allergies.
Provide them to the chef, to the students. And so, what if we had this material, but it stayed central office and we bought it, we modified it for our purposes, and what the schools got from us was we added pictures in there, but what we should have done, we did, and so we own it.
Copyright.
You're breaking copyright.
No. When you copy, if you look at the book and you copy it for your student, it's not copyright. If we
So
have
when you do it
material,
system-wide, it is.
but I'm not saying to modify or sell or take away. If I don't know,
Supplement, you need a supplement.
substitution or removal. If this story, this one stinks, we're not going to provide this one.
I frankly think as a system, we do that all the time. third grade social studies book that I have used for a lot of years, that I helped pick. We knew it wasn't perfect. It just matched our standards the best. So then the system also got the Whoop Mifflin, I think, as a supplement.
It's double purchase. I'm not
But we
talking about
do it
that.
all the time.
But yeah.
Do it all the time because nothing's ever going to be perfect, but you might need it because this is really valuable over here. Do you use one resource
I would-
in your classes?
No, I do not.
Right.
And I would never want to present something and then say, we're going to add this to it. I would just want to like not have the dirty vegetables show up on the plate. So, so where are we with that?
So it's a reality. I mean, in the ideal state, we would adopt a comprehensive program that everything's there for the teacher, one-stop shop, very sophisticated. They only have to go to one place for their planning, one place to push resources out to kids, one place for the texts. But there may come a time where we essentially may need to supplement the resource
Can I
to meet
ask?
our needs in SCPS. Yeah, go ahead.
Publishers haven't caught up with the research, unfortunately, because I don't know if you've listened to the podcast Sold a Story. Whole language practices are pervasive in a lot of the resources, and one of those is called 3Qing. And so one of the things that we are adamant about is eliminating that across the district. So when we review programs, if it has any evidence of that, it's not being considered. However, Super Kids, there was nothing with 3Qing in Super Kids at all. Some of the programs, 3Qing is a method for reading words that is not based in science. Into Reading is one of the programs we're looking at. CKLA is one of the programs we're looking at. Wit and Wisdom was one, it hasn't come up for approval yet, but it was one that was reviewed by the internal textbook review committee. None of these programs have 3Qing. Do some of these programs have different strengths? Yes. Do they have weaknesses? Yes. So the struggle is going to be in the next few weeks, choosing a program that is, like Scott said, comprehensive. And if we have to, like you said, Mr. J, take this away because this is better, we might have to do that in K through 2. We might have to say we're going to use this and this because there are no perfect programs.
What does that do to teacher? Because having had to mix
Switch
resources,
between,
it is so much nicer when you get like, in my world, test banks and, pre-built presentations, and then you can just modify. What?
It was a one-stop shop.
But, when we think about our instructor workloads, our teacher workloads,
I would say it is what it is, and where I think the system is trying to make it easier on teachers, and would it be nice? Yes, but whether you grab, this social study or this read language, you're not going to just sit and have the kids read through one book. You're going to pull novels, and you're going to find something online that fits a lesson. Teachers are going to do that because they have favorites, and they need to modify those favorites sometimes that they don't fit. So I don't think pulling one book or another, or one resource or another, and especially if it's in the overall plan and the curriculum, that today we'll use, a resource from this company or that. It might more be if you're all trying to share it. There's a limited number for a team.
I will say one thing, it does help to try to find that one thing, because when you're a new teacher, you're still gaining those skills of modification and adapting. And I know when I first went to county, there was a Prentice Hall technology book I got, CD I got from Colony. And it was like, oh, this is awesome. And it really supported me as I was kind of getting my legs and getting my classroom management together. And then doing parent conferences and doing emails and IP meetings, and like it was one less thing that like had a fourth of the material and allowed me to kind of just have one place to go. So I know right now we're in flux. We have a lot of teachers who are traditional, teachers who are new. So it would, if we can't mess up reading, we got to get it right. And so having the material that can like to support teachers that are new, that could be a key reason why we should try to find, you know, the best of the, you know, the least rotten apple. You know?
Right.
I would
That's
like
our goal.
to just ask a pointed question. Do you think we are doing the best that we can, given the resource limitations, you know, financial, publisher, you know, expectations? Are we doing the best we can? And if we're not, what do we need to change?
Are you asking about resources?
In terms of like our reading program that we implement, because I'm with Mr. J, it's like everything starts from reading.
So, you know, with Maryland Leads, it gave us a real infusion to get this work started. To go to K-2, it's going to require another investment that you're going to see it in the budget conversations, the additional investment that's going to be needed to do this. We're confident that we're going to get through this mud and find the one that we're going to recommend that we use in FCPS for various reasons, and we're going to feel good about that. And the investment that's required. Part of the challenge is going to be, and I don't mean to sidebar, but we're going to also need to do mathematics in the coming years. Aligned to the blueprint, it's time to revamp resources there. This idea of a comprehensive one-stop shop for teachers in mathematics is also something that we wanted to do. So we need to do. So yet another investment in the coming years. That I do envision being front and center in budget conversations coming soon.
We're here for it. That's what we're here for. If they can't read, they can't count, then we aren't doing our job. So we didn't. I'm saying I'll fight for it. So bring it on.
I think there's, venture to say, everyone on the board would feel the same. You know, hopeful inflation and those other things to curb our budget and feel like, you know, depending on how the state is, the county government will be friendly to education. It was a happy thought, you know. Last question for me is I'm thinking as you're talking about the publishers, does this have a lot to do with, say, Texas and California, where publishers tend to market big time? Where those states haven't come, do we need to contact our counterparts in those states and say, hey, get on board with science and reading, or you're not seeing that?
No, I think it's happening across the country that for school systems that are implementing the science and reading. A lot of attention nationally right now. You know, in California and even Texas. That's where Dr. Chaudhry's from.
Yes, it is.
And they have a great site right now, Texas Reads, that they're in that direction.
Quite candidly, I think that's part of our challenge is because FCPS has kind of led the way in some ways with science and reading, going back to pre-pandemic. Dr. Kubik today is at MSDE presenting to all the districts in Maryland about the work we've done with science and reading. And so, yes, publishers are catching up because they have to try to meet the needs of the entire country. And here we are, a larger, more diverse system. And so, yeah, that as we've talked about, it could come down to we're going to provide teachers with that comprehensive resource to the greatest extent we can to allow them to do their jobs the best they can. But it may mean some additional tweaking around the edges that we need to do for our system.
Thank you for all the work that you do and entertaining all of our questions and for educating me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're around the budget changing.
Future agenda topic.
Yes, we come back January 11th, just after the holidays, and on the agenda is science, K-12, world languages, and updates from Mary Jo Richmond around media centers and libraries.
That we are still planning on having Ms. Richmond's presentation in January?
I am not,
Sorry to push on.
I'm not sure exactly where that landed with,
Well, the library materials presentation goes to the board on February.
Thank you, okay, that's,
Just on media.
I think this will be her, more of her annual update.
okay.
And,
Urgent.
yeah,
That's the last time.
All right, thank you.
and then in February, I think there'll be a full board presentation about the selection of the library.
Okay, good, that's exactly right. All right, thank you for that clarification. All right, anything else from the board members? Our audience is still passive. All right, and we are adjourned at whatever time it is, almost 10 o'clock.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.